Tonight, we go behind the headlines to try to understand what's really going on with all the big developments here in Nigeria. We attempt to uncover details about the stories that matter, stories that explain the who, what, when, how, and why, and take you deeper into the subjects that are shaping the news of the week. Subjects such as the ongoing shake-up of the opposition in Nigeria. Every few days, more of its members are pushed into President Tinubu's orbit as he marches inexorably forward towards his goal of controlling not only every state in Nigeria politically, but every major party, making him, if he succeeds, the most powerful politician ever in this country. But how does he do it? Because as the popular international Nigerian columnist and author Farouk Perogi said, not even the most hopelessly unthinking defenders of the Tinubu presidency can deny that his reign so far has been defined by unrelieved economic hardship, staggering inflation, a collapsing naira, and a deepening sense of despair among Nigerians. And talking about inflation, one of Nigeria's most respected number-crunching economists, Bismarck Rewani, has questioned the credibility of the latest inflation data, in which the headline inflation rate dropped to 23.71% in April, down from 24.3% in March. How is it, asked Mr. Rewani, that the NBS results show food-producing states experiencing high inflation rates, while major consuming states have significantly lower rates? And yet, the Minister for Information, Mohammed Idris, with all the pride and vanity and pomposity that anyone can possibly muster in the face of what the writer Farouk Perogi calls the overripe objective conditions for President Tinubu's political repudiation, tells us that the president is doing so utterly brilliantly well amid the unbearable toll of his many policies that we should open our eyes to his 2 years of remarkable progress. Kind of like the emperor's new clothes, isn't it? But amidst all that deepening sense of despair, there is one bright spark to report, and that is the news that Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, has been recognized for his philanthropy and for giving back to Nigeria and Africa. Mr. Dangote has been named in Time magazine's 100 philanthropy list, which recognizes the 100 most influential leaders who are shaping the future of philanthropy across the world. So tonight, as we reflect on all these stories that are shaping the news, I'll be joined in the studio by our top crop of guest analysts. I'm Charles Eniegolu, and this is Arise Prime Time. First tonight, President Tinubu's 2027 re-election bid received a major boost this week as the APC in the Northwest endorsed him as its only preferred candidate in 2027. They said they were endorsing him for his progressive governance, for improving leadership, and for his unwavering support for the socio-economic development of the Northwest zone. They claimed security in the Northwest had significantly improved and that the zone enjoys unprecedented federal representation with 12 ministers, key National Assembly positions, and top security appointments, a clear sign, they said, of inclusiveness and recognition. In return for their endorsement, all the APC governors got automatic tickets for a second term in the 2027 governorship elections. Meanwhile, the Minister of Works, Senator Dave Umahi, has said that all 5 governors in the Southeast, regardless of their political affiliation, are supporting President Tinubu ahead of the 2027 general election. He said the region is witnessing unprecedented federal infrastructure development under Mr. Tinubu and urged Peter Obi, the opposition Labour Party's 2023 presidential candidate, to join the effort. Now let's enrich our perspectives with our guest contributors who will give us their views and expertise on these big stories of the day. And for this, I'm joined in the studio by the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, the public affairs analyst, Mazi Nnamdi Dixon Iroegbu, who is a member of the People's Democratic Party and is also an obedient. And from our off-site studio, I'm also joined by the public policy analyst and development expert, Kaka. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So let me start with you, Professor Abiodun. Is it looking more like 2027 is a done deal for President Tinubu, as somebody suggested?
No, I'm not sure because we've traveled this route in the past, where we'll have a groundswell of sing-songs supportive of an incumbent. And when it gets to the election proper, we'll see it becomes a different ballgame, So the rhetoric that we're having now, what is appearing like a sing-song now, might just be some kind of call, coming out of some immediate material gain. In the period of Jonathan, we had a semblance of this, where a cross-section of people were obviously very supportive until the election came closer, before we actually saw where the direction was going to go. And remember, even in the period of the military, it was more like a done deal that General Sani Abacha was going to succeed himself, but something else happened. But again, this might also be another experience. But what worries me really is that we are starting rather too early, and of course, playing up politics at the expense of governance and making it look like the election is actually next week or maybe next month, or maybe some few months ahead of us. We're still talking about nearly 2 years away from now before the elections actually take place. INEC is actually yet to reel out timetable, even though we can make appropriate projections, But for us, to be emphasizing it now, it looks more like we are undermining the importance of governance, And yes, government has come out to say that all such support now should be rested until further notice, but the supporters are actually not resting, as the case could be. Even from official circles, we are seeing governors, saying they are supporting the president for 2027, and other leaders are also, singing the same tone, So if we are hearing on the one side that let's rest this matter for now, and on the other side, officials, are doing the contrary, it becomes really worrisome, and we begin to ponder over how we want to situate governance, because the primary reason for leaders emerging is, is to perform, for the good of the people, but whether it's being downplayed, then of course it becomes really unfortunate and obviously antithetical, to the ethics or the expectations of democracy, which we're supposed to be playing.
Indeed, and I'll come to you in a minute, Mazi Iroegbu, but let me come to you in the off-site studio, Kaka. I wonder how the many groups in the core North who oppose President Tinubu, or at the very least skeptical about him, would react to that endorsement as they reflect on the fact that the Northwest and the Northeast are consistently identified as the poorest zones in Nigeria. I mean, they've got poorer under the APC, 8 years of Buhari and now 2 years of Tinubu, with poverty rates at more than 70%. And I would imagine that, as Professor Abiodun was saying, they would consider it a bit premature, just 2 years into Mr. Tinubu's presidency, when poverty rates are set to rise even further by 2027, according to the World Bank.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles, for having me again. Actually, just like the Prof has said, there's nothing like a done deal here. What I can tell you is that the endorsement from the Northwest, which apparently happens to be the worst hit zone in the country in terms of banditry and insecurity, is just unbelievable and very unfortunate 2 years down the line. And as you said, this is time for governance. This is not time for politicking. Everything, including insecurity, has been politicized. And I come from the Northeast, Borno State in particular. And our governor has come out clearly and said that there is resurgency of insurgency in the state. And apparently, some ministers sitting down in Abuja refuse to even accept the fact that this is what it is. And what is happening is today, the same governor also came out, that is Governor Zulum, came out and said that informants in the military, as well as in the community and in the security forces, are behind the resurgency. People are looking and selling information for money. And our people are dying. The president is probably not getting the right information, as far as I'm concerned. Because if a governor like Zulum can come out and say, this is what is happening in my own state, and you don't take it serious. A minister is sitting in a cozy office in Abuja and calling shots just because of psychophancy. It's enough, it's enough. This cannot continue like that. Even when he was in 3 days ago, he was in Marte, 300 or so communities have left their villages. One town remaining. Marte, the governor, was begging the military and the president that they should not allow Marte to fall. What are we doing? What is happening in this country? Mr. President Tinubu, what is going on? Something is wrong here. Please wake up and listen to the voice of Nigerians. Our people are dying. And you're talking about 2027? No, no, and no.
And I can feel the passion in your voice there, Abba Kaka. You certainly have the sympathies of all of us coming from a state that is beleaguered at the moment. But to be entirely fair and objective, President Tinubu himself has not been talking about 2027. It's a lot of the hangers-on and all the people who expect to benefit from it who've been talking about that. And coming to you, Mazi Iroegbu, in the same vein, now, of course, the Minister of Works, David Umahi, has come out to say that all 5 Southeast governors are supporting President Tinubu in 2027 and that Peter Obi should follow suit. How much does that rub you up the wrong way as, first of all, a member of the Obedient movement, which has an obedient governor in Abia State, and secondly, as a member of the PDP, which has a PDP governor in Enugu State?
Thank you, Charles. My brother from Borno, the cry is general. It's all over the country. So we sympathize, but it's all of us. We're all victims in this case. But please, indeed, we are with you. The Southeast, particularly, we are terribly ashamed of the so-called leaders that we have that came from the southeastern Nigeria. Talking about the former governor of Ebonyi, the Minister of Works, and the careless statement. This is not the first one that he's making. He's been known with making all sorts of this kind of careless statements. And they couldn't end it without mentioning the main figure here that Nigerians are yearning for, which is Peter Obi. He couldn't finish whatever garbage he wants to give out there without mentioning his name. Southeast is terribly battered, and they claim that the Tinubu government has, remembered the southeastern Nigeria is a lie from the pit of hell. If Tinubu meant well, first thing, southeastern Nigeria used to be known as the most peaceful zone in Nigeria. But since the APC came, southeastern Nigeria has become a shadow of itself. And we thought that, oh, okay, that was Buhari who had whatever scores he had to settle with the southeast. So never regarded the southeastern Nigeria. But we thought Tinubu would have a different approach. One is insecurity. Everyone from the southeast has called for the release of Nnamdi, for instance. And we wonder, what is keeping him there? Couldn't you adopt a political approach to that very issue that we're faced with? The southeastern Nigeria every Monday is on shutdown. The economy of the southeastern Nigeria is being crumbled, really. And yet somebody will sit somewhere and be telling us that southeastern governors are endorsing an abysmal failure. One of the statements that I love so much that the former president of Nigeria, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, made is that never reward failure. The southeasterners will never reward failure because indeed we haven't enjoyed anything whatsoever from this government. Its patronage of those leeches around him is okay, he can patronize them. But about us as a people, there is nothing like considering APC or the Tinubu government when it comes to the Southeast. Because for us, we identify with quality. It has nothing to do with tribe or religion. Once the character involved in leadership has the quality required or qualities required, we will identify with that very particular leader. In this case, Tinubu would experience, if possibly, worse than what he experienced in 2011. And you talked about, if you permit me, talked about the various endorsements that he's getting. As far as I'm concerned, it's more like a panicky mode they have activated. Due to the abysmal failure of the government, they have decided to adopt, if you remember, during the 2023 campaign, what Tinubu told his supporters. Grab it, run with it, and that's what they are adopting. That is this stampede approach that they have adopted. It's sad that governance is suffering in the name of politics. And INEC, who ought to be the umpire, are they blind around the town to see these billboards of the so-called 2027 aspiration? Is this not a crime? Is this not against the Electoral Act? Yet everyone is quiet. It's unfortunate, really. Very, very unfortunate. But for the Southeast, count us out. Dave Umahi and his cohorts don't speak for us. I can tell you that much.
Right, okay. Well, let me come to you, Professor Biodun. To be entirely fair and balanced, what's the other side of the story? I mean, it's not all bad news from the government of President Tinubu, is it?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I think some of these rhetorics that we hear about support here and there, you know, are typical of democracy. And of course, sometimes we can see that they're just meant, you know, to create an atmosphere or to generate momentum that might not be solid at the end of the day. So sometimes I would just imagine we may not as well break any bone over it, you know, because if there's a side that is concerned about supporting one side, the other side can also come up and get involved in the exchange. I remember one politician saying that what is democracy if not about noise, you know? But the underlying thing is that we shouldn't just make our politics solely about election, so that will not become electocracy. I think it was Mike Ezekwueme, SAN, that made that coined that cliche, if I remember correctly. But having said that, I think you know, we may not deny the focus or the attempt by the administration at streamlining the economy, you know, trying to liberalize the market and making it, you know, a better capitalist system, you know, where prices of goods and services will be a function of market forces, as the case could be. But the downside, like we have also identified, is that there should have been enough cushion so that there won't be a free fall in prices in the way that the middle class and the underclass, you know, the lower class will be completely marginalized in the way we have seen over the years. So at the level of intention, you probably will give the administration some good credit, you know. And yes, there were some mistakes in the early stages, but the fact that we have witnessed a relative level of stability now, you know, is slightly heartening. But what more can we say other than asking that they still have substantial opportunity to do more, you know, and the opportunity is still there. So if that opportunity is still there, the focus should be on what more they can do rather than getting the system obfuscated with political rhetorics around 2027.
Right. Well, let me come to you, Abba Kaka, because I think it was Farouk Parogia, the columnist, who said that elections in Nigeria are not won on the basis of objective conditions. He further pointed out that the big problem at the moment in Nigeria is that the opposition is undisciplined, spineless, fragmented, those are his words, strategically bankrupt and falling into cheap traps set by Mr. Tinubu. And according to him, it won't be Tinubu who wins, it'll be the opposition that loses. I mean, how do you assess that point of view?
Well, actually, he has made a very good point, indeed, because, you know, our people, especially politicians in Nigeria, the kind of ideology that is expected of an opposition party is not there. The opposition, as well as the ruling party, all of them are actually after money. And it's not the welfare of the people, or if not good governance. You know, that's why we have this voter apathy. And it's unbelievable that the National Assembly is talking about compulsory voting in Nigeria. There's a reason for voter apathy. They should go and find out what is happening. Why are people not interested? When you have that level of insecurity and hunger and criminality and corruption going on in the land, you will naturally expect that people will lose interest in democracy. And this democracy itself, the kind of democracy we are practicing, is not working for the country. You know, it's not working for the country. So what Perogi is saying is that the opposition, we have very few national opposition leaders. I can name Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, I can name Peter Obi, I can name Konkoso, and the rest of them, you know, who actually are now standing their ground, who are what is left of the opposition in Nigeria. And I hope that they will give the ruling party a good opposition, because in democracy itself doesn't make any sense without a good opposition. And therefore, we have to go back to politics of ideology and believing in working for the people. Public service is what politics is supposed to be all about, but not what people are after now, grabbing money left, right, and center while the country is crumbling. Nigeria is drifting. I don't know if the political leaders are aware of not. They should be aware because they are in the same country. You know, most of the members of the National Assembly cannot even go home to their constituencies in all parts of the country because of insecurity. We don't have food because of insecurity. Farmers cannot go back to their farms. Look at all the farming states in the north. Maybe 20, 30% of them are farming now. And this is happening every year. And the security budget goes up every year, so does the insecurity and banditry. It doesn't make any sense. Money is being channeled into the military. Where are the weapons? Where are the arms? Why are our soldiers and bases being attacked every day? And then we go back and budget more money for them to be killed. Something is wrong. The architecture, our security architecture has failed us. It's not working. And Mr. President, this is time to take the bold decision. Have the courage to take the bold decision. People are dying like chickens, right, in most of the part of the country. Something is wrong. I'm really, really upset today.
Yes, I can see that, and you're perfectly entitled to feel that way, because, I mean, that's where you come from in the Northeast. But let's move on from that and let's talk inflation, because one of Nigeria's most respected number-crunching economists, Bismarck Rewani, has questioned the credibility of the latest inflation data, in which the headline inflation rate dropped to 23.71% in April, down from 24.3% in March. How is it, asked Mr. Rewani, that the NBS results show food-producing states experiencing high inflation rates, while major consuming states have significantly lower rates? Inflation was highest in 3 states, Benue State at 51%, Ekiti State at 34%, and Kebbi State at 33%. Which are the food-producing states, while they were lowest in consuming states. Ebonyi State has 7.19%, Adamawa State had 9.52%, and Ogun State had 9.91%. And let me come to you, Professor Abiodun. I believe it's your turn. Or is it you?
I thought it was mine.
Okay, no, it's your turn. Okay, well, let's not sound as if we're skipping you. Let me come to you then, Mazi Iroegbu. Apologies for that. What do you make of Bismarck Rewani's contention?
But it's apt. The last time I was on this show, Charles, if you remember, I defined the Tinubunomics as voodoo economy, because it doesn't apply. The numbers, you couldn't just be reeling out whatever statistics you're reeling out, and the people are not attesting to these figures. So clearly, all of it is a sham, really, just to more like pad the narrative for themselves in favor of whatever they want to go out for in 2027. I read through what Mr. Rewani said, and clearly the questions you raised, and also referred to the recent experience that our young ones went through with JAMB and all of that, likening it to what JAMB just did and all of that. I think sincerely that this government is just toiling with our brains. This government has no direction whatsoever. All the claims of smartness or what the man did in Lagos and all of that, we've seen it here now at the national scene, and there's nothing to show for it. It's all cock and bull as far as I'm concerned. So we just have to, realize that we're on our own as a people, and that this is no longer democracy. Tinubu is not practicing democracy. It's more like plutocracy, government of the rich, by the rich, and for the rich. They don't care about us at all in any way. All of the stories about insecurity in the country and all of that, the president is dancing on the graves of Nigerians who have been killed, slaughtered, either in their farms or in their homes. There has no way, in any way, shown empathy, towards the Nigerian people. So, for me, I am not surprised that the expert now is finding holes in the so-called figures reeled out. I'm not surprised at all.
Well, Professor Adeniyi, Mr. Rewani is questioning the logic behind the disparity in those numbers. He's wondering, how it is the states that produce food have higher sort of inflation rates. And he's wondering if the numbers are credible and whether we're seeing some distortion in the methodology. Your thoughts?
Okay, first, let me just go back to the last question you asked me about the silver lining, if there's any point on which we can commend the administration. I think FCT Minister is actually very outstanding. It's something that we see every day with infrastructure. I remember in the long time, we know what infrastructure can do for development in terms of creating the enabling environment for the stimulation of the economy. And of course, the aviation minister too has brought in some greater level of stability in that sector. And quite a number of other ministers have also been doing very well. So there are some points that we can comment, but the argument is that there's still a greater opportunity for improved performance, maybe.
Bearing in mind that it's just been there for 2 years.
That's fine.
Let's
maybe
face it.
at some other points we may have opportunity to look at the pluses and minuses, as the case could be. But back to your question, Charles. I think there's no time that that the NBS comes out with its figures that it will not be controversial. And sometimes the argument has been made that it actually depends on who is talking and the point that this kind of data that the person is also applying to make his argument. But this time around, we are hearing from a very credible economist, But the good thing I'm going to pick out from what he said is that it's looking like it's not being definitive, really. Looking like asking a question about why we are having the difference, 24 to 23, where there are other variables that should matter. So it's not completely disputing it or maybe discounting it, but simply asking for more clarification.
Absolutely.
And I want to be confident that the NBS can rise to the occasion.
And to you, Kaka, briefly before we have to go on a break, I mean, the mere fact that Bismarck Rwani is raising questions about the credibility of the figures and the methodology, coming from someone as experienced as he is, what red flags does that raise for you?
It's a big red flag because if you have that kind of disparity where food producing states, inflation is higher than food consuming states, obviously the statistics or the methodology and the results itself are not reliable and it's not credible because it doesn't make sense. This is common sense. So you don't have to be an economist to actually understand something is wrong. And from the other part of what he said also, Mr. Rwani said, is, the reason why some of these prices have come down is because of the imports, which is true, as well as the fact that another point that maybe he didn't mention was, you see, before President Trump took office, there's a lot of dollars being pumped into the USAID programs. And the moment that was shut down, a lot of the NGOs packed and left Nigeria. And that is another reason why because NGOs buy a lot of food and store them all over the place. We from Borno knew this for quite some time. They buy a lot of food, but they don't distribute. Actually, they buy and keep, they buy and keep. We were wondering why they are buying and keeping. Or renting apartments or houses for 10 years, which is what is happening in Maiduguri. For 10 years, you come and rent as if you knew the problem was going to be there for that long. So prices dropped as NGOs don't have the dollars to be buying those rice anymore. So it's very credible, information that he was questioning the methodology and the results of the MBS, which I also subscribe to because it doesn't make sense, those results, showing us that, food producing state like Benue is, rice price is higher than in Ikiti or Adamawa. It doesn't make sense.
As Professor Adeniyi pointed out, I mean, he's raising questions and there's no finality on that. So we'll have to wait and see if the methodology will be revealed and we can get a better sense of, get some clarity on it. You're watching Arise Prime Time. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with our guest commentators with whom we're assessing the big stories of the week. Stay with us. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, with all the pride and vanity and pomposity that anyone can possibly muster in the face of what the writer Farouk Peregi calls the overripe objective conditions for President Tinubu's political repudiation, tells us that the president is doing so utterly brilliantly well amid the unbearable toll of his many policies, that we should open our eyes to his 2 years of remarkable progress. Mr. Idris said the 2 years of the Tinubu administration have shown significant progress. He cited the NEL Fund student loans, refineries working, inflation coming down. He appealed to public relations professionals to key into ongoing efforts and reforms to rebrand Nigeria's reputation and attract investors into the country. And our guest contributors, with their views and expertise on the big stories of the day, are still with me in the studio, and they are the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, the public affairs analyst, Mazi Nnamdi Dixon Iroegbu, who is a member of the People's Democratic Party and is an obedient, and from our offsite studio, we're also joined by the public policy analyst and development expert, Kaka. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for staying with us. Let me come to you, Mazi Iroegbu, because I'm reliably told that it is your turn.
Yes, it is.
And we wouldn't dare skip you, would we? Mohammed Idris describing Nigeria as a massive construction site. Said there were over 2.5 trillion naira worth of road infrastructure projects approved for this year alone. I mean, that's worth crowing about, isn't it, given the fact that Nigerian roads have been in fairly dire conditions for a while.
It's laughable. Rather, I would tell the Honorable Minister that Nigeria is actually a huge crime scene. That's what it is. All sorts is going on here in Nigeria, and the criminals are getting away with it. That's the true picture, and not what he painted. About some of the things he reeled out as achievements of this government. We've seen his likes before. One of the things I have as a challenge with most of these ministers is that they don't know where to draw the line. Are you the spokesperson of the president as Minister of Information? No. Rather, the spokesperson of the government of the Federation. And you ought to be speaking the issues as they are, as we're faced with in Nigeria. But we've seen his likes, and he should be reminded of the Lai Mohammeds of this world. And time will come when he will not be there anymore, and then the reality will dawn on him. Truth is that so many of them are living in fool's paradise. You talked about some roads and all of that. Is it like the coastal highway that was approved without any legislation, no oversight and all of that? Is that the kind of thing that they should be, telling us about? There is nothing to really be excited about what he said and the things he reeled out, and attempting to hoodwink Nigerians to speak of or speak positive of things that are very terrible that we're faced with here. So please let him correct that statement about Nigeria having become a huge construction site. It's not. Nigeria has become a huge crime scene.
Well, let me move on to Kaka, who is the next contestant on The Price is Right. He listed projects, Mr. Kaka, such as the Lagos-Calabar, Badagry-Sokoto super highways, the Kano-Kaduna railway line, as part of efforts to connect cities and regions in Nigeria. He cited the revived Port Harcourt and Warri refineries, although the jury is out on those ones. He was also talking about the fact that the foundation is being laid for sort of economic renewal. I mean, do you see nuggets of truth there?
Well, actually, when we take issue of the Port Harcourt and other refineries, we all knew what happened under the last management of the NNPCL. The president has actually taken a bold step and brought in two good, excellent and well-trusted technocrats and stopped that mess that was going on. $2.9 billion was voted just for the repairs of the refinery, and they have been giving us dates and timelines which never materialized. And even the Warri refinery that was said to have been on stream itself was actually not on stream, we found out now. Secondly, the issue of roads and infrastructure, especially the one you talked about. I'm surprised that the last FEC approval on projects that includes roads, 70% of those approvals went to one side of the country, which is very, very unfair and is unfortunate. 70%, Mr. Charles. The Northeast, from where I came from, only got 30%. And the North voted for this president by 62% of votes. That is how he became the president. That is very, very important. And that same North with the 62% is still there. So I don't know why the Northeast was only given 30 billion or 38 billion naira of projects out of almost 2 trillion naira projects. 70% went to one side, which is very unfortunate and unacceptable. Right. Because Nigeria, we are all Nigerians. All projects of government needs to be evenly distributed, needs to be fair.
Indeed.
Yes.
Right. Okay. We've got to move on from that. Let me come to you for a final word on the Mohammed Idris question. Professor Adeniyi, he pointed to the removal of fuel subsidy and exchange rate unification as key reforms that triggered short-term hardship, but he said are now yielding results, including rising revenues, exchange rate stability, and increased refining capacity. What do you make of that?
Yeah, for me, Charles, I think I want to cut him a slack, because as the Minister of Information, he's not supposed to say anything different. He's supposed to see things from the positive side for the government.
It's his job, isn't it?
Yeah, he's doing his job. I remember also that he's a public relations expert in a publisher par excellence, So he's there to portray, to project the president or the federal government in good light, and that's what he's doing. But it's now, the onus is now on us, to examine those points that he raised rigorously. Yes, he mentioned Lagos-Calabar Highway, Sokoto-Badagry Highway. Then you remember also I mentioned Abuja, the changes manifesting in Abuja and making us to wonder what past ministers were doing on account of the outstanding effort of the present minister, Well, I think, again, that the singular admonition, which we can probably repeat for the 10th time, is that beyond the rhetorics of good governance, of positives, we need to be able to locate some of those good things, positive things they are talking about, in practical terms, down to the grassroots, because that's the only time that when people can connect with it directly, then of course we'll probably need less of Mohammed Idris. We'll have a lot more Nigerians, speaking well of the government, and not maybe a few people, projecting the government in good light. But generally, people have to have jobs to do, and when they are doing it, I just want to give them a slack.
We've literally got 3 minutes left, and so for this next chat, please keep your responses to no more than a minute at 3 words per second. Now to our final topic, and amidst all that deepening sense of despair, there is one bright spark to report, and that is the news that Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, has been recognized for his philanthropy and for giving back to Nigeria and Africa. Mr. Dangote has been named in Time magazine's 100 philanthropy list, which recognizes the 100 most influential leaders who are shaping the future of philanthropy across the world. And I believe it's your turn, Mazi Iroegbu. Dangote, Africa's richest man, worth more than $23 billion, has a foundation that is worth about $1.25 billion and spends at least $35 million every year on philanthropy projects in Nigeria and across Africa. Your reaction to the recognition he's been given?
Very well deserved. Very, very well deserved. If you remember vividly the COVID period, Dangote was available for the Nigerian people. He was directly involved in finding succor, finding ways of probably ameliorating some of the challenges that we're faced with. He has shown that wealth is not just about self, it should be also about affecting lives. Unlike these so-called kleptomaniacs that we have in power that keep grabbing and grabbing and grabbing. But we have seen that there's a shining light that
Right.
can still come from this part of
Okay.
Africa. Indeed, well deserved. Congratulations, sir.
Okay, and a final word from you, Abba Kaka. It is significant, isn't it, that Mr. Dangote has been recognized not just locally, but now internationally at the global level for his philanthropy. We've got a minute.
Absolutely. Actually, congratulations, Alhaji Dangote, and I challenge and I ask all other rich Nigerians to follow suit, because what Dangote brought to Nigeria is something that is unbelievable, and we are really happy and we are proud of him. I'm actually proud to be a Nigerian because of people like Dangote. And look at the frustration he went through by building this refinery, and the frustration the former leadership of the NNPC did. But we commend the president for taking bold steps to make sure things are done right with Dangote and the refinery.
Right. On that note, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much indeed. Abba Kaka, who is a public policy and development expert, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, who's a current affairs analyst, political commentator, and professor of communications at Bayes University in Abuja, and the public affairs analyst, Mazi Nnamdi Dixon Iroegbu, who is a member of the People's Democratic Party and is an obedient. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.